welcome back our co-hosts in this second hour of the program. He is a retired admiral, former president of the Berkeley County Commission, and a 3-day-a-week co-host at the right price.
At the right price. But we're going to negotiate that price, Rob. It needs to be multiplied by several orders of magnitude.
Good morning, William Stubblefield. How are you?
Good morning.
0 times any number is still 0.
That's right, exactly. That's what Mike gets real satisfaction out of. He knows we can negotiate, we can increase by several orders of magnitude. It's going to be the same thing.
The pay you get just from being on the air in the community is
immeasurable,
magnified by
and the wisdom
immeasurable amounts.
The wisdom I get sitting across from you, especially the 30 or 40 minutes as I'm trying to wake up and trying to keep you awake, is I learn a lot.
Yeah, Bill gets here about 3:45.
Yeah, and, I do, yeah.
I unlock the door and let him in. Also, let's say good morning to Maria Lawrenson. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning. You will never see me here at 4:45.
No, you're exercising.
Not even, not even 7:45. I'm coming in at the last moment.
Officially, at the end of this month, Martinsburg High School gets a new principal. And that person is here in studio. Maranda Lynch is with us. Good morning, Maranda. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
I understand you know Colin and our sports dudes.
I do. I get to spend a little bit of time with those guys. They make it very entertaining. Every game is a different adventure with them. We have lots of fun off air and sometimes on air. They're a great group.
Yeah, they are. Good bunch of young dudes.
And I like your coat this morning. You're carrying the colors.
You know, I just figured I have to go for it. We're in it to win it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of my personality. You'll get to know me, I'm sure. And I'm here to win. And this is my color. I like orange.
Good,
As with most who have ascended to the level of principal, you have a lot of experience around the area and at a variety of stops. Can you highlight some of those for us?
Yeah, so I moved to Berkeley County. I'm not a Berkeley County native, but really and truly, 20 years later, I feel I am a native here. I've watched this area grow from my first time here, where Sheets is now, and Spring Mills was a pond when I first came, and Barney's was the only thing there. I spent 11 years at Spring Mills Middle School as a 7th and 8th grade ELA teacher, and just really had a great time there teaching middle school. I really loved teaching middle school, which people say is a little bit crazy, but I loved it. And then after that, I moved to Martinsburg High School from 2016 to 2020, and I spent 4 years there as an assistant principal. COVID was just, kind of coming into play. We did our famous drive-through graduation, which was just wonderful. And then I moved to the board office, which sometimes is a little bit of a different step. People sometimes will go the principal route first before they go there. I just saw an opportunity, and I thought, it seems to maybe fit what I'm looking to do. I was heavy into curriculum, and it was a curriculum position. And then 5 years later, here I am stepping back into the school. I feel like that time has given me a little different perspective. I have a bigger vision now of looking at things from the district perspective, and now being able to take that and kind of focus that back in to look at Martinsburg High School specifically.
You said that is a curriculum position. Did you focus on high school, middle school, elementary?
My first year there, I was the secondary schools support person. So I did everything except math for grades 6 through 12. And then the second year that I was there, in the last 4 years there, I have spent that time in instructional technology. So that covered K-12. I had a group of technology integration specialists that I work very closely with, and we had a really good time supporting teachers and supporting kids, and just some fun work, getting kids in and learning technology, because it's the future, and it's here and it's not going away. So we've been able to teach students and teachers how to leverage that for academic success and not just use it as a tool, as a babysitter for kids. So I've had a lot of fun in that role, and just feel like the time was right. Martinsburg just feels like home to me. I spent some time there, and I just feel a sense of pride. That's something I love about Martinsburg. When you talk to people and they say, I'm a 4th generation Bulldog, or I'm a 3rd generation, that pride is just something for me. It gets me in the heart, right? It just really makes me excited to be part of that journey with them. So I'm very excited to be back kind of at a place that I feel was a big turning point in my career.
Maria.
So we also know that the current superintendent did some restructuring at the board office. Was your position eliminated, or so is that part of this move as well?
No, actually my position was not eliminated.
Okay.
I was taking on a little bit of a different look. Still going to be supporting in instruction, but also was going to be carrying a little bit of the load of professional development. in the role that I had prior to, we did a lot of professional development. We actually just hosted our big, it's called BCS Skills U event. So my role was not being eliminated. But like I said, the opportunity just presented itself, and I thought, you know, what a better time than now, right? To step back into the spot that I just really felt like was home.
So did you work under Trent Sherman when you were the assistant?
I did.
Trent was been there 100 years.
I hope he's listening.
Yeah.
I did. I had the pleasure of working under Trent. The position that I took really opened up when, you guys will remember when Greg Reed left and went to the WVSSAC. And then there was a little shuffle there, and there was an opening. And David Walker stepped into the AD role, and then that left an opening with Brian Sine and Trey Arvon as assistants as well. And then Trent was the principal, and then I was able to come into that role and really focus on ninth grade that first year. And then I stepped into more of a curriculum role in the next couple of years that I was there.
A two-part question. One, we see what change Kevin Pitchnagel's done at North Middle. Does the principal of school have that much influence on the direction the school goes? And if they do, why?
I believe it's all about your attitude, right? And just making sure that that personality and culture and climate is huge in a school, and making sure that students really feel supported, they feel seen, they feel safe, and they feel challenged. That is my mission and my goal in stepping into this role. And I think just the attitude and the energy that I can bring to a school is hopefully going to help to continue the success that they have had there. Mm-hmm. You know, I was very fortunate to learn from some great leaders that I worked under. Like I had said, Mark Arvon, Nancy White was a principal that I had worked under, and then Trent Sherman. So just having those people in my corner, and I actually talked with Nancy White yesterday. So, you know, she said, I'm just a phone call away. So
she's in North Carolina, is she not?
She is actually in Virginia.
Oh, Virginia, okay,
yeah. She was one of a kind, and I learned so much from her, and having those people, you know, as mentors to me to be able to help with that, I think is a great situation for me to be in.
Yeah.
Maranda Lynch is our guest. She will be the new principal at Martinsburg High School by the end of this month, but has kind of started to transition into that role already. Were you asked to apply for the job, Maranda, or did you seek this on your own?
No, this was something that a personal thing for me. When I looked at my resume, you know, and I thought, what is the future for me in education? Not ever being an actual head principal was just something that I felt I needed to get that, you know, I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. So again, when I saw this position open, I just decided I'm going to go for it. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't work out, I'm happy where I am. You know, I love the work that I did with the district. I worked with some really amazing people, and also being able to work with all of the schools. That's something that I really valued about the job that I had prior. I was able to be in every school, which gave me a nice perspective to see everybody does it very different. You know, everybody's perception and the way that they do things can be a little different. And I've been able to take highlights of all of those places, and I hopefully will be able to put that into good practice at Martinsburg High.
Talk a little bit about, you used the word culture. Talk a little bit about the culture at Martinsburg High School. Clearly, you've been there, you understand. Trent built a certain kind of culture there during his tenure. What do you intend to maintain? Do things need to be changed? You've, you know, had the job for like 2 days now. So, you know, I'm sure you're completely familiar with everything you want to do.
I think anytime there is an administrative shift, it's a great time to just recalibrate. Not saying that things needed this change, that change, but just level setting again and making sure that our focus is our focus, and making sure that everybody knows what the expectations are, and we establish that across the board, and everybody knows they have to meet those expectations. I think when you walk the halls of Martinsburg, you quickly realize it's a very special place, and the fact that kids come from all different backgrounds there. You have, you know, the high of the high and sometimes the low of the low, but those students, you don't know it. When you watch them work together, whether it be in an academic setting, an extracurricular, a co-curricular, whatever that may be, they truly come together to be a support system to each other. And I just want to continue that. I want to continue a place where students do, again, they feel safe, they feel seen, and they feel heard. I think Trent did a very good job of establishing like a student advisory group and just listening to students and teachers as well. You know, teachers play a major role in that, and making sure that our teachers feel supported and that they know and have the tools that they need to be successful in the classroom.
What's your style, Maranda?
I'm a all hands on deck, roll the sleeves up and walk the walk with you. I'm very much that servant leadership where you're going to find me doing those things. If the tables in the cafeteria need wiped, I'm going to be there wiping the tables in the cafeteria. If a teacher needs support, I'm going to be there with them, maybe co-teaching, modeling, whatever that may look like. That is the type of person that I am.
What, you know this because you were a teacher, so as a principal, what can you do to better support teachers and alleviate some of their stresses that are not necessarily completely job related with the idea of teaching, but we know teachers deal with a lot of stuff?
Yeah, I think just being present and being available, letting teachers have that space where they know and feel comfortable that they can come in and have conversation if there's something going on. I actually sent out my first official staff email yesterday, and I set up these listen and learn sessions. I offered 15-minute sessions to anybody that wanted to attend. I'm doing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're virtual, so people don't have to come to the school, but I'm running them through the rest of June and then all of July just to get input, and just to hear. I gave them 3 questions. What do you love about Martinsburg High? What's one thing at Martinsburg High you could change, and how can I make your job better? So that will be kind of the driving force behind, I know 15 minutes isn't a lot, but I just think to try to get through everybody. And as luck would have it, I sent that yesterday at about 2 o'clock, and I've got 7 or 8 folks that have already signed up. So I'm really excited about that, to just, even though I've been there's some new staff. And I think, moving from an assistant principal position to a principal position, it's different. So I want to establish that relationship with the staff right out of the gate. I want a relationship of support and compassion, so they know I'm there and I've got their back.
So sort of piggybacking off of that, we know that that student discipline has been in the forefront, both with the legislature and parent concerns, that kind of thing. Are there things that need to be changed in terms of student discipline, particularly at Martinsburg High School?
I think just consistency, making sure that it is consistent across the board, that when you walk into one class, I'm going to use the example of a student wearing a hat. The Berkeley County policy says no hats in school. So we have to make sure that we are consistent so that our students know what the expectation is across the board. I think that's the biggest thing for us, is just making sure that we are all consistent and we follow the matrix that's been set. The district has worked really hard to create a policy that we follow in a matrix. If X happens, then Y happens, and making sure that that is carried out with fidelity each and every time we do have a disciplinary issue.
Will you go into next year fully staffed?
We are looking really good at this moment, to be honest. I don't want to jinx it. I set up some interviews yesterday with certified people, which is always great news. When you get folks that are certified, that is our ultimate goal. Right now we've offered a couple, so we're about 5 to 7 positions open at this point. But like I said, I've got some interviews scheduled for next week that we're going to roll through. So we're in pretty good shape at this moment, I feel like.
Maranda, let's talk about academics in the state at Martinsburg High School in Berkeley County. You've had an opportunity to view this from a teacher's perspective, an AP, and a board office perspective. What can we do holistically and from the state legislature on down, state BOE on down, to improve the academics in the state of West Virginia?
I think some of that just starts with the level at which we're teaching information. Sometimes we stay very surface, and then when our students, especially at the high school level, they take the SAT. That's a very rigorous test. So I think sometimes maybe we hang in that little bit of a lower level, and we're not necessarily pushing our kids as high as we know that maybe they can go. So I think making sure that we're aligned, that's another step. That's probably the first step, is making sure that we have alignment to our standards, and that depth at which we need to be teaching, we are hitting. Those are probably the 2 biggest things for me. That's going to be our focus right out of the gate, is making sure that we are aligned and that our level at which we are teaching is in agreement with what the standard is expecting our students to be able to do.
There used to be, and I don't know if this is still the case or not, but 7, 8 years ago, people used to say that senior year for students, for too many of them, was kind of a joke. It was too easy. You didn't have to be in school that often. You didn't have to take that many classes. And it was almost like junior year was your last year of academic challenge, unless you were a serious AP student who was trying to get into an Ivy League school or whatever. from your observations, is that still the case? And if it's not, what did we do to change it?
I would say absolutely not. One of the nice, incredible things that we offer here in Berkeley County is the availability for our students to take some college courses. And it doesn't mean they're going to an Ivy League school. They can take classes at Blue Ridge and then go and in another year come out with an associate's degree. We have opportunity where kids can do internships, and that counts towards being a CTE completer. So I don't feel that that is still the case. I think the classes that our seniors take are exactly what they need to be doing. Some of them it's more college career focused, some of them it's more career military focused. You know, you have, depending on the student, the path that they take. But I don't think that that is the case. I think that our seniors are exactly where they need to be.
You used the word alignment a while ago, alignment with standards. Are the standards consistent? If you look back for several years, are the standards consistent, or are they changing?
So there's been a little bit of update, and I think that's a natural part of education, a natural part of the progress of education. But for the most part, things have remained consistent. The State Department will put things out, and then as a district, we take those standards and make what we call curriculum maps. And those are just, honestly, it's a map for teachers to follow. You know, think of it, to get from point A to point B, you can follow a map, and it's very much like that. And we are currently in the process at the district level of updating those even this year to be more specific. And if a teacher knows what they are to be teaching, the curriculum that aligns in the support, the additional supplemental curriculum, is aligned right to that. And they know exactly what it is that they should be using to hit that standard. The reality is a lot of our teachers haven't been, not a lot, but some of our teachers haven't been formally trained in education. It's just where we are at this moment. So we take the approach of anything we can do to make that job easier for them, we want to do. So that new rolling out of the standards and maps will be 100% helpful for our teachers that are permanent subs and also our veteran teachers.
I'm going to skate to the edge of politics, and you may want to back. You don't have to answer this, but there's a tug of war right now between the State Board of Education and our legislators. The legislators would have the review rights of all the curriculum that State Board of Education. One of the arguments that's been proposed by the State Board of Education against this is the continuity or the consistency of standards, fearing that if it was all with legislators, they could change on a year by year by year basis. Do you think that's a real concern?
I do think that's a concern. I think it's always in the state that we're in education right now. Anything, like I said, that we can do to make things, I don't want to say the word easy because education is not easy, but anything we can do to help provide consistency for our teachers is where we need to be. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are on the front line, and we need to do our job in supporting them.
You alluded to test scores, alignment, that kind of thing. We know that Dr. Sachs was in here a couple so weeks ago and talked about some improvements that have been made, but we are still significantly below where we need to be. How do we convey to students, number one, this is important, and number two, are we teaching the right things so that children can be successful on these tests?
I think how you convey that it's important, I think that all starts with the relationship with students. Making sure that when kids know you care, I firmly believe they're going to perform the best that they can, and they will understand, hey, this is important for me. And whether they're college bound or not, it's still a measurement of academic success for them. As far as, just looking at how you continue and how you keep building that, things like test talks and just going into classrooms and having conversations with students. I think you're right, we've made progress, and the job is tough because we have been significantly lower than we've wanted to do. And I think the steps that Dr. Sachs has put in place this year are going to continue. We're going to see greater growth in the next couple of years. I do believe that. Just we made some small gains this year. I wouldn't really consider them small. I think we've made some significant gains, and I think that continuing with those content standards and just some of the new professional learning that we're going to be offering to teachers, all of that is just going to continue to build to that momentum of making a difference.
Miranda Lynch, our guest here on the program. She is the new principal at Martinsburg High School, replacing Trent Sherman, who's moving on to Rumsey. And it's official at the end of this month, but she's already kind of transitioned into that slot while Trent is still there, providing a little bit of transitionary guidance, I guess is the best way to say it there. When you look to improve the academic achievements of the kids in the high school, you can't ignore the feeder schools that lead into that experience, because if you fall behind in second grade and then third grade, by the time you get to ninth or 10th grade, it's a snowball effect. How much influence do you have over the feeder schools that lead into Martinsburg High School?
There's some influence there, and I think just establishing, Trent did a good job of working with, Mark Barney, Dr. Luke Smith, Melissa Galladay over even at the elementary school. They have nice little feeder pattern, and they have some meetings and such that they sit down and talk together, and I really hope to continue that. I think it's a good thing. We're so close to South Middle, and I think getting students at Martinsburg High to go over there to be mentors and volunteers and just kids seeing other kids being successful, and maybe they had a tough time like I did, and it gives me somebody that I can relate to and look up to. That's something that I definitely look to continue to do. And they do a lot of that now, but I definitely want to continue that.
I think good students, motivated students, students who have parents involved in their education, I think you can get as good of an education at Martinsburg High School or Hedgesville or Spring Mills as you can at any high school. Those kids, the situation kind of takes care of itself. But I think West Virginia has more kids who fall through the cracks, more kids who are being raised by their grandparents or by a guardian, don't have that parental support, or don't even have a house to go to at the end of the day. There's a lot of insecurity there. Don't get enough to eat or whatever. What can you do for those kids who fall through the cracks?
I think with a lot of those students, getting them involved, finding something that inspires them and ignites them and gets them active in their education, whether that's a sports team, whether that's an after-school event, a club, whatever that looks like. Research shows that when students are involved, they typically tend to excel a little bit more. So I think, identifying those students early on, having that conversation with feeder schools to say, hey, have you noticed anything, with some of these students that are coming in, to just keep an eye on or keep a watch. I also think back to that relationship piece. I think that's why those relationships are so critical. It maybe isn't a teacher. Maybe it's a student assistant that's in there. Maybe it is a cafeteria worker. Maybe it's a custodian. Maybe it's an admin. But just making sure that students know people in that building are there to support them, that they have one trusted adult. I think that is something that would go a long way with catching those students that are falling through the cracks.
So final question on this end. So is Martinsburg on track for another football championship this coming year?
I hope so. That's always fun, right? The community gets very excited about that. We hope that is the case, yes.
Excellent.
Which leads me to Bill's final question.
Yeah, you mentioned you were at the board before you went to Martinsburg. I suspect that'd have advantages, but what specific advantages does that have?
I think for me it's vision. It really and truly is just the vision and being able to see the way that all schools do it. My background was Spring Mills Middle to Martinsburg High, honestly, 2 schools. So when I stepped up to the board level, I then got to see what every other high school did and things that I thought, oh, this is a great idea. When I went to another school and the way that they did it, I thought, oh, that's even better. So really and truly just having that vision of being able to see how everyone is doing it rather than just the schools that I've been to, that has really been, I feel that's going to be a huge asset for me.
Miranda Lynch, final 30 seconds is yours. What message would you like to give?
I'm just really excited, and I hope everybody in Martinsburg is ready to get in and get our hands dirty and just get to work. We've got some work to do, and everyone knows it, but it's going to be fine, and I'm going to be there and just be a support system to really get the dogs on top in all facets of education.
When is first day of school in August?
First day of school, the teachers come back, I think it's August 11th, and then our students come back that following Tuesday.
Very good.
So we're ready.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to meet you, and thanks to Carla Trotman for setting that up for us too. Miranda Lynch, nice job.